I never thought my own family would see me as an obstacle, as a burden to be removed. But life has a way of revealing truth in the harshest light. My name is Renate Richter. And what you're about to hear is not just my story. It's my awakening. For most of my life, I believed love and loyalty were enough to hold a family together. My son, Max, and his wife, Lena, were all I had left. After my husband passed away, I gave them everything: my time, my savings, my trust. I believed they loved me in return. But love built on greed has no roots. It started subtly. Whispers behind closed doors. A sudden distance. Lena taking control of small things: my groceries, my mail, my finances. I thought it was kindness, but soon I realized it was control. Then one day, I learned they were trying to declare me mentally incompetent, to take everything I owned. My house, my freedom, my dignity. That day, the woman I used to be, the quiet, forgiving mother, died. And in her place, someone new was born. Someone who would not bow, not break, and not let them destroy what years of honesty and work had built. The moment I discovered their plan, I felt the ground vanish beneath my feet. It wasn't just betrayal, it was annihilation. My own blood wanted to erase me while I was still breathing. I remember standing in the middle of my living room, the silence so heavy it hurt. Every photograph on the wall, every memory, suddenly felt poisoned. How long had they been planning this? How long had they smiled at me while scheming behind my back? I refused to fall apart. I called my lawyer, Mr. Weber, a man whose integrity matched his compassion. When I told him everything, he was silent for a long moment, then said, "Renate, this isn't just cruel. It's criminal." Together, we began gathering every document, every receipt, every proof of my independence. But the deeper we looked, the uglier it got. They had people signing false statements, neighbors, even my pharmacist. Lies twisted into weapons. Still, I told myself truth has a voice, and I would make mine heard no matter how long it took. When I went to confront Mr. Green, my pharmacist, my heart raced like a trapped bird. He had always been kind, gentle even. I couldn't understand why his name was on that false report. "Mr. Green," I said softly, "I need to understand why you told them I was acting erratically." He turned pale. "Mrs. Richter, I didn't, not knowingly. Your daughter-in-law came here weeks ago. She said she was worried about you." Worried. That word burned in my ears. She had used my kindness as her cover. He explained how Lena brought a paper for him to sign, something about confirming irregular medication purchases. He thought it was for my health insurance. He never imagined it was part of a legal trap. I felt both pity and fury. He had been used just like me. "Then you'll help me fix this," I told him. "You'll write a new statement, the truth this time." He nodded, ashamed. And in that moment I realized lies only win when we stay silent. Later, Mr. Weber and I went to see Mr. Davis, my neighbor. He had also signed a statement saying I was unstable. When he opened the door, his face was cold, dismissive. "What do you want?" he snapped. "We're here about the declaration you signed," Mr. Weber said calmly. He folded his arms. "That woman has been acting strange for weeks," he muttered. "Installing cameras, yelling at her family, strange visitors." I took a deep breath. "Mr. Davis, those cameras were to protect myself. My son and his wife broke into my home twice. Those visitors were my friends, the only people who stood by me." He shrugged. "That's what a crazy person would say." The cruelty stung more than I expected. But I saw something else behind his eyes: ignorance. He didn't understand my pain. He only saw what they wanted him to see. When we left, Mr. Weber turned to me. "Don't let his words get to you, Renate. People see what they're told to see. The truth will cut through soon enough." And I nodded, because I wasn't fighting just for myself anymore. I was fighting for every silenced woman who'd ever been called crazy for standing her ground. The next day, Mr. Weber arranged for me to see Dr. Moore, a specialist in mental capacity evaluations. I remember walking into her office, my hands trembling slightly. She smiled kindly. "Mrs. Richter, let's just talk," she said. "This isn't a test to fear. It's a chance to be heard." For 2 hours she asked about my life, my finances, my emotions, my memory. I answered each question calmly, truthfully, even when my voice cracked, because I knew this was more than just a test. This was my dignity on trial. When she finished, she looked at me with quiet admiration. "Mrs. Richter," she said, "your results are well above average for your age. You are not only competent, you are exceptional." Her words broke the last chain of doubt around my heart. I had proof now, solid, irrefutable truth. But when I walked out of her office, I didn't feel triumph. I felt grief, because the battle I was forced to fight shouldn't have existed at all. My own family had made me prove my sanity just to keep my freedom. The weeks before the hearing felt endless. Each morning I woke up with the same thought. They want to erase me. I tried to keep myself busy. I cooked, tended to my garden, and met Eleanor for tea. She was my anchor through it all, calm, strong, and unflinchingly loyal. "Renate," she'd tell me, "you've spent your whole life giving. Now it's time to protect what's left you." Her words became my mantra. I stopped hiding my fear. I wrote down every memory, every manipulation, every dollar they took. I even found the letter Lena wrote, pretending to be me, trying to cancel my insurance policy. Each piece of evidence was a wound, but also a weapon. On the night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I stood by the window, watching the lights flicker across the street. Somewhere out there, my son was preparing to testify against me. I whispered to the dark, "You may have taken my trust, but you will never take my truth." And in that silence I felt something awaken, not anger but power. The courthouse smelled of old wood and fear. I arrived early, dressed in a simple blue dress, the same one I wore to Max's graduation years ago. Back then I was proud. Today I wore it as armor. When I saw them, Max and Lena, my chest tightened. He couldn't even meet my eyes. She, on the other hand, looked straight at me, her lips curved into a faint, cruel smile. Their lawyer began his opening statement with practiced sympathy. "Your Honor," he said, "this is not a case of greed. This is a case of concern for an elderly woman losing her grip on reality." Every word felt like a dagger. He turned my independence into insanity, my protection into paranoia. Then Lena took the stand. She cried, her voice trembling like a professional actress. "Renate has always been like a second mother to me," she said, dabbing her eyes. "Seeing her mental decline has been devastating." The courtroom murmured in sympathy. But Mr. Weber was calm. When his turn came, he asked gently, "Mrs. Schuster, when was the last time you called my client just to ask how she felt, without mentioning money?" Lena froze. Her tears stopped midstream. I don't recall," she stammered. And in that silence, the first thread of their lie began to unravel. Then came Max. My son. My flesh and blood. He swore to tell the truth, and for a moment I wanted to believe he would. But as he spoke, each word cut deeper than the last. "My mother has become irrational. We're only trying to help her before she loses everything." The courtroom was quiet. My heart broke with every syllable. Mr. Weber rose slowly. "Mr. Richter, in the past 3 years, how much money have you received from your mother?" Max shifted. "I don't know exactly. Does 33,400 sound about right?" Gasps filled the room. "And how many times have you visited her without asking for financial help?" He said nothing. Mr. Weber's tone sharpened. "Is it true that you and your wife entered her home without permission?" Max's voice cracked. "We were worried about her. Worried enough to bring a lawyer to make her sign over power of attorney?" His silence was the answer everyone heard. For the first time I saw the shame flicker in his eyes, but it was too late. The son I once knew was gone, replaced by a man blinded by greed. When my turn came to testify, I stood tall. My hands trembled, yes, but my voice did not. I told them everything. The years of sacrifice. The sleepless nights when I worked double shifts so my son could go to university. The humiliation of being excluded from his wedding. The invasion of my privacy. When Mr. Weber asked, "Why did you stop financial support?" I took a deep breath. "Because I finally realized," I said, my voice echoing through the courtroom, "that what I was receiving wasn't love, it was a transaction. My money was wanted. I was not." Gasps rippled through the room. The opposing lawyer tried to make me look confused, but I met every question with calm clarity. When he accused my friends of manipulating me, I said, "For the first time in years, I have relationships built on respect, not dependence." When I finished, even the judge seemed moved. Mr. Weber's closing words were a quiet storm. "Your Honor, this is not the case of a confused old woman. This is the story of a survivor, reclaiming her right to live free from abuse disguised as love." The judge left to deliberate. 2 hours felt like 2 years. I sat there, staring at the wooden bench ahead, praying not for victory, but for truth. When he returned, the room fell silent. After reviewing all evidence, Judge Miller began, "It is clear that Mrs. Renate Richter is fully competent. Her financial decisions are rational and her independence is her right. This court denies the guardianship request." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Then it hit me, I had won. Not just the trial but my life back. Outside, the cold air tasted like freedom. Max and Lena walked past, anger written all over their faces. She glared at me with hatred. He looked away, ashamed. Eleanor hugged me tightly. "You didn't just win, Renata," she whispered. "You reminded every woman watching that she deserves to own her life." I smiled through tears. Because she was right. I hadn't fought for revenge. I had fought for redemption. That night, surrounded by laughter, I realized something powerful. Peace is the loudest victory of all. That night, my house was filled with warmth and laughter again. Eleanor had gathered all my garden club friends, my true family, the women who had stood beside me when everything else fell apart. We toasted with sparkling wine. "To freedom," Eleanor said. "To truth," added Maria. And Alfreda, always wise, raised her glass and said softly, "To every woman who ever thought she was too old to start over." I looked around the table and smiled through tears. For so long I believed I needed my son's love to feel whole. But in that moment, surrounded by women who saw my worth without a price tag, I finally understood. Love doesn't demand. It uplifts. That night, when the laughter faded and I sat alone, I looked around my home. The same house that had once felt like a prison of manipulation. Now it was my sanctuary. The silence was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. And for the first time in years, I slept without fear. 3 months later, I sold the house. People said I was crazy, that I should hold on to the memories. But I didn't need walls soaked in sorrow. I needed light, movement, and new beginnings. So I bought a small apartment near the city center, bright, airy, filled with art and music. I hung my favorite paintings, bought a record player, and filled the space with flowers. Every morning, sunlight poured through the windows like a promise. "You're free now." I donated half my savings to organizations that protect the elderly from family abuse. Because I had lived that pain. And no one deserved to face it alone. With the rest, I began to live. I traveled across Europe. I took art classes in Florence. I painted sunsets in Paris. I met people who didn't care about my bank balance, only about my stories, my laughter, my heart. Each day I became more me. The woman who had once been afraid of losing everything was now building something priceless. Herself. Sometimes when I walk along the river in my new city, I think about Max and Lena. I don't hate them. Hatred is a chain, and I refuse to live bound again. I heard they had to move into a smaller apartment, that Lena finally got a job for the first time in years. Maybe life, in its quiet wisdom, taught them what I couldn't, that money without love is empty, and greed always costs more than it gives. I don't wish them pain. I wish them clarity, as I found mine. At 72, I finally understand something I never did at 30. Love that demands proof isn't love. It's control. And no amount of guilt or blood ties can make it sacred. I have learned to forgive, not for them but for myself. Forgiveness isn't letting someone back into your life. It's letting yourself step out of their shadow. And I have. Some nights I sit on my balcony with a cup of tea, looking at the stars. The city hums below, alive and untamed. I think about the woman I used to be, quiet, compliant, desperate to be loved. She was kind, but she was tired. She believed peace meant silence. She was wrong. That woman is gone now. In her place stands someone unbreakable, forged by betrayal, shaped by truth, and freed by courage. If my story reaches even one person who feels trapped, manipulated, or made to believe they are less, I want you to hear this. You are not weak for being kind, but you are strong when you finally choose yourself. Freedom doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes in silence, the kind that fills your heart after years of noise. My name is Renate Richter. I am 72 years old, and I have finally learned that the most important person I will ever love, protect, and believe in is me. So tell me, if you were in my place, what would you have done? Think about it, because maybe somewhere inside you there's a version of yourself waiting to be free too.